Hello everyone. In this video, we're going to explain the front view. First, we'll start by drawing a sphere. It doesn't have to be perfect. What matters is the relationship between the construction lines on the sphere. I'll draw the center line through the middle of the sphere, with a very slight tilt toward the right. Then, I'll draw the brow line perpendicular to it. The point where these two lines intersect is the point that indicates the direction the face is looking. Then, I'll draw the nose line in the lower third of the sphere. I'll take the distance from the brow line to the nose line, and using the same distance, I'll determine the lower facial section. This is the foundation of the Loomis method, and I need to keep these distances consistent so that the width of the face doesn't change on me. Here, I move the center line and the side planes slightly toward the right. I can determine this movement by observing the reference. I'll take the distance from the nose to the chin, and it will be the same as the distance from the brow to the nose. Then I'll connect the sphere to the chin by drawing the chin line from the middle of the sphere, following the rotation from the lower edge of the sphere. It's better to compare the similarity of the chin I've drawn with the reference and its relationship to the brow. There shouldn't be any mistakes in the chin because it has a big effect on the overall resemblance. Then I'll cut the two sides so we can see that the ear line will come out from the lower part and go down from the upper part, following the perspective. Because we are cutting into the form here, the height of the ears becomes smaller since they are lower in height than the nose. So, in the front view, the height of the ears decreases. I'll draw the ears according to the height determined by the reference. I'll also draw the hair, starting from the sideburns until it reaches the hairline, and I'll determine it in relation to the end of the brow. To find the eye line, I'll divide the distance between the brow line and the nose into 3 equal sections, and I'll place the eye line in the upper third. The neck is determined based on the mass I've constructed, following its rotation and its lower ending, so that the neck doesn't become too long and remains proportional to the reference. Then, I can easily draw the clothing. For the outer hair shape, I'll start from the ear and determine the height of the hair slightly above the sphere. The top of the sphere represents the end of the skull, which means it is the foundation of the hairline. Then, I'll draw the hair underneath the ears and observe its relationship with the body, which is why I determine it early in the construction. It's very important to understand the correct order of these steps. Now, I'll determine the width of the nose using 2 points on the nose line. Then, I'll measure its width and compare it with the width of the face, checking it against the reference to achieve the correct proportions. From these 2 points, I'll draw lines parallel to the center line until they reach the eye line. This helps me determine the overall width and boundaries of the nose, as well as the position where the eye begins at the tear duct. I'll start by drawing the first nostril wing. Then I'll mark the nostril openings with points so I can accurately determine their shape and make them resemble the reference. Then I'll separate the wing of the nose from the anterior nasal cartilage. The separation between the cartilage and the wing is a connecting area between the cartilages. This area is slightly recessed, so it takes a darker shadow. This is part of the anatomy that you won't be able to clearly see just by looking at the surface of the face. Now, I'll move to the distance between the nose and the chin and divide it into 2 equal sections. Then, I'll divide the upper half into 2 equal sections again, creating 4 equal sections in total, so I can find the position of the V shape of the nose. I'll draw it, and then I'll determine the thickness of the lower lip. Using the line in the middle of the mouth, I'll determine the width of the mouth from the nose by drawing a line parallel to the center line. This makes it easy to complete the upper and lower lips. The lower lip is usually larger, and in this reference, the lower lip is much larger than the upper lip. For the eye, I'll start with the tear duct using the line coming up from the nose wing. Then I'll draw the lower eyelid, which determines the width of the eye. The eye width will be slightly smaller than the width of the nose. Then, I'll draw the upper eyelid, which determines how open the eye is. After that, I'll draw the thickness of both the lower and upper eyelids, so I can place the eyelashes within this thickness. Then, I'll draw the visible line above the upper eyelid. I'll place the iris in the center, keeping in mind that about a quarter of the iris is hidden by the upper eyelid. For the eyebrow, I'll determine its position from the eye itself, not from the construction brow line. I'll define it from the lower edge of the eyebrow, and I'll find that the eyebrow follows slightly broken, straight lines. Then, I'll draw the thickness of the eyebrow. The left eye will be a mirror of the right eye, but the main difference will be in the eyebrow. I'll find that the end of the left eyebrow is slightly higher than the end of the right eyebrow. And that's it. We've finished drawing the portrait comfortably using these fixed steps. I can use these same steps with almost any reference I want to draw. You can also watch the video where I explain the differences between square, round, and long face shapes. I'll leave the link in the description. Now, let's do a quick review of the portrait to finish it and make sure that the resemblance is accurate. If you enjoyed the lesson, don't forget to follow, leave a like, and share your thoughts in the comments. I'll see you in the next lesson with the best artists.